What's flourishing now? Well, in this channel, we're going to be exploring all things human flourishing around the world and answer all of your questions. And what's flourishing now is basically everything. Have you noticed that human flourishing seems to be popping up all over the world in all different places? It's popping up in countries, across religions, across political lines. It seems to be that everybody is talking about this new buzzword, human flourishing. And the question is, why now and why is that happening? So, one of the reasons why it's happening is that there has been a massive breakthrough in human flourishing science from a scientist at Harvard named Dr. Vanderweel. He spent the last 20 years wondering the very same question about, well, what does it actually mean to flourish as a human? We hear this word used for decades, but what does that actually mean? And what Dr. Vanderweel invented was the first indices of its kind to actually measure in a cohesive, common metric way whether or not a human is flourishing. So, the best way to understand why this is such an enormous breakthrough is imagine a time prior to thermometers where you could not easily have a common metrics to know if a person had a fever except putting your hand on their head. When the thermometer got invented, along with it came the ability to have a common metrics. And not only that, but to know definitively what is going on with that person. And with that metric, unfolded a whole number of solutions and breakthrough science as it pertains to what do we do about a fever in a human. If a human has a fever, how do we get them well? How do we stop the fevers? How do we prevent the fevers? And with that in mind, we have a whole array of breakthroughs that have happened. We have medicines, we have preventative measures, we have knowledge on what a fever even means and what number is really dangerous to the human, when it really puts them at risk and when they need interventions. Having a common matrices is critical to breakthroughs when it comes to human flourishing. Now, one of the things that's interesting is because the term human flourishing has been around forever, and Dr. Vanderweel, as a scientist, had this question of what does it mean for a human to flourish and how do we actually measure it? One of the things that's happening is now that there's this common metrics, it's showing up everywhere. And like all breakthrough science, sometimes people don't fully understand what they're actually talking about with human flourishing. And they're also making conclusions that may or may not be accurate. But those who are actually scientists and researchers and proper professionals who understand all of this are doing incredible research. They're finding out things that are really important when it comes to human flourishing. Things like what are the common denominators for humans that if we know that they are there, they're more likely to flourish. And they're having some fascinating breakthroughs that is allowing us to explore what it means to be a human and flourish. For example, education is an indicator of flourishing in most countries. So if you have an education, you're more likely to flourish. And if you're in the Western hemisphere right now, that probably makes a lot of good sense. Two countries where it doesn't apply is Japan and Australia. And so scientists are really exploring what is it about those countries and their cultures that means that if you don't have a proper formal education, you can still flourish. Another breakthrough that has come out of this 20 years of research is that GDP does not guarantee flourishing of the residents of that country. That's very fascinating. Before the indices, there was probably a general understanding amongst people that maybe money doesn't buy happiness, but it certainly helps and it can make you flourish. What the scientists are discovering right now with the human flourishing indices is that that is not actually the case. There is not a direct causation and correlation between a country's GDP and whether or not the residents will actually be flourishing. That's because there's different measures across the human flourishing that really determine whether or not strong relationships is one of the measures. Having a strong community is another. And the wonderful thing about human flourishing and this indices is that it applies to everyone. It doesn't matter your religion, your political belief, where you live in the world. This indices is providing a very important measure for all of us to understand and to create plans to help us all flourish. And that is what's flourishing now.